only 12 hours a day, people would want to know, you feeling okay? Like, what's the problem, right? So I would get in around 7 in the morning, thinking I'm going to work until 8 or 9 anyway. So I'd get in at 7 in the morning. We had something called a trunk line, where the unclassified phones in the office were connected to a Washington exchange. So even though I'm in Pakistan, I've got a 202 number, and I can dial a 202 number like a local call. So I would get in before everybody else, and I would always call my then girlfriend, my post-divorce girlfriend, who became my second wife. She was a senior CIA officer. So I would always end our conversations by saying, okay, love you, mwah, and hang up. Yeah. And one of the old timers, there were 7 old men who worked for me. They were all like very senior intelligence service level officers. All of them had been at least director of Near Eastern operations. One of them had been the deputy director of the CIA. And they all volunteered to come back as contractors after 9/11 just for patriotic reasons. But if you're a contractor, you can't have a management position. So they worked for me, which is...
That must have been interesting.
I learned more from those guys in 6 months than I learned in the rest of the entirety of my career. But anyway, one of them heard me finish the call and hang up. And he says, so, are there wedding bells in the future? And I said, oh, I don't know. I just got divorced and I'm kind of afraid of being a 2-time loser. And he says, 2-time loser? Jim, how many times have you been married? He says, 4 for me. Dave, how many times have you been married? I got 5. Bill, how many times have you been married? 3. And he says, and I got 4. Don't worry about being a 2-time loser. It comes with the job. Well, the truth is that the CIA has the highest divorce rate in all of government because you are trained to lie, and you lie all day, every day. And a lot of guys can't turn it off when they go home at night.
And so I was watching another conversation you were having. If you don't mind me asking, how did that end? How did the first marriage end?
In April of 2000, we were living in Athens. Tough assignment for me because we were critical threat for terrorism.
Athens, Greece, to be clear, not because there is an Athens, Ohio.
Athens, Ohio.
I think that's where your boy Joey Burrow's from.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm shaving, getting ready for work, and my oldest son was 6 years old at the time. He's sitting on the floor next to me watching me shave. And I'm asking him, so what are you going to do today? What are you going to learn today? You know, what are you going to play at recess? And then he says to me, I told Mommy she shouldn't kiss Uncle Stelios on the lips. She should only kiss you on the lips. And she told me to mind my own business. I felt like I had been electrocuted. So I wiped the shaving cream off my face. I went into the bedroom. She was sleeping, and I kicked the bed. And she says, what? I said, who the fuck is Stelios? She said, where did you hear that name? I said, who is he? And then she said, don't believe everything a 6-year-old says. And I said, I'm going to leave before I do something that I'm going to regret for the rest of my life. And so I got in the car and I went to work. And that afternoon, she started calling me every 5 seconds. And I just would let it go to voicemail. Finally, the secretary came into my office and she said, John, your wife's on the phone and she's crying. I said, yeah, she should be crying. And she said, no, she was in a car accident and she's injured. And I was like, for God's sake. So she was calling my phone again. So I picked it up and I said, what? And she said, I got in an accident and I'm injured and the kids are crying. And so I drove up to the accident scene and the car she was first in a left-hand turn lane to make a left. There was a guy 5 cars back. Greeks are very impatient drivers. She went to make the left. He came from the back and just T-boned her and pushed the car up onto the sidewalk and demolished it. And she broke her wrist and it was a big mess. So I go up there and get out of my car, my fully armored, BMW 540 with, my 2 guns. And I said to him, what happened here? And he gets all excited. He says, "Iyenekasu, your wife, inabutana. She's a whore." I said, "My wife is a whore?" And then he was in a coma for quite a while, 3 days.
Oh, you had that built up.
Any other day,
Yeah.
I would have let it go.
Yeah.
Any other day. So I got arrested.
Oh, you did?
Oh yeah, and
How do you arrest the CIA station chief?
No, I wasn't the chief. I said, "Look, I have diplomatic immunity. So, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. I admit I'm wrong, but I have diplomatic immunity." And they're like, "Okay, just sit in the cell." They left the cell door open and they let me keep my gun, which was nuts.
Yeah.
But then they brought me in, and the guy, he was clearly concussed. He hadn't yet kind of, faded out. That was at the hospital later. But he was sitting there in a chair, and he's just like, you could see like the birds tweeting, from the cartoons. And he says to me, "So what happened?" So I told the story. And then this is the police captain for the whole station. And he says to the guy, "Is that true? You called his wife a whore?" And he said, "Yes, we got in an accident. She yelled at me and I called her a whore." I did not know that it is a crime to call a man's wife a whore in Greece. And so they charged him.
Wow.
And I said, "Listen, I can't get charged because I have diplomatic immunity, but in good conscience, please don't charge him." I beat him like almost to death. So they ended up dropping the charge. He filed a lawsuit against me later, but because I had immunity, it was just thrown out. And the only fight I've ever been in my entire life. And she said, "I want a divorce. I'm not living like this anymore." And so the plane landed in New York. I caught a connection to Washington. She caught a connection to Cleveland. And that was the end of it.
Was that the end of it for Stelios too?
Yeah. Yeah,
They didn't wind up together.
Oh, no. The guy could barely read. That was, no. She was feeling lonely, and it was because I was so focused on the job.
It was very hard to maintain a marriage in the CIA.
Very much so.
No?
Very, very much so.
Are you a good liar?
I think I am a good liar, yeah.
Why?
Why am I a good liar? Because deep down, I believe we're the good guys. And lying in service of my country was something that I became good at. I remember my first operational boss telling me, as a general rule, he said, "Never lie to medical, finance, or security. They'll put you in prison. Never lie to me. I'll put you in the hospital."
So assume that I'm one of your sons, or assume that I'm a close brother of yours, and we haven't seen each other for 20 years, and you're prepping me for the rest of my life. This may be the only conversation we're going to get to have. So whatever truths you have, you're not going to get to tell me 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Like, give me the stuff now.
I would tell you that, again, this is going to sound cynical, so I apologize in advance.
That's right.
Tell you that it's been my experience that the world is usually not what it seems, right? You can never get inside the head of another human being. You just can't. We may think we really, truly know somebody. We don't. We never know what's going on. We never know what's going on in people's private lives. And so you always have to be wary, and you have to be self-protective. The CIA actively seeks to hire people who have sociopathic tendencies. People, not sociopaths. Sociopaths have no conscience. People with sociopathic tendencies do have a conscience. They do react in a polygraph exam. But because we believe we're the good guys, we're happy to work in legal, moral, and ethical gray areas. But sociopaths easily slip through the process because you can't trip them up on a polygraph. They have no conscience. So they don't react. That's the problem. Sociopaths slip through. Now, you know as well as anybody that sociopaths are common among C-suite officials in companies. That's how they got to be CEO, CFO, COO.